Well, a very pleasant evening to you, and welcome to Gospelfest Conversations. What an evening, what a day, what a week it has been. You can imagine a whole week has gone by already, and we're back here again for another episode of Gospelfest Conversations. I'm really excited about the guest that we have this evening, and I'm going to introduce you right away to a gentleman who has been involved in media in Barbados for quite a number of years. Um, Emmanuel Joseph has been a three-time president of the Barbados Association of Journalists and Media Workers, formerly the Barbados Association of Journalists. And he is the current vice president. He's also a senior freelance journalist with the Barbados Today, and that's the country's leading multimedia online news network. And you know where to find them at barbadostoday.bb. And anytime you scroll through those pages, you will see the name Emmanuel Joseph. Well, I want this evening to introduce you to the person, Emmanuel Joseph. There's so much I want to tell you about him, but also allow him to tell you about himself. But let me say a very pleasant evening to Emmanuel. Very pleasant evening, Emmanuel.
Same to you and our viewers. It's really a pleasure to be here. I was really looking forward to this opportunity to share with everyone. Thank you so much, Adrian, for having me.
I talked to you about, a person might say, what is he doing on Gospel Fest Conversations? And we normally introduce and interview artists and so forth. But we're going to get a chance this evening to hear a bit more about you. And we're going to go back and talk about some of the earlier days. And you actually, and when I first met you, you were very much a gospel artist.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
you have a number of recordings to your name.
Mm-hmm.
One that is pretty popular, more popular indeed these days, as it's had a kind of a rebirth.
Yeah.
But this song that we want to listen to before we go any further is one that you really record. What year did you record this song? What was the name of it?
Actually, the name of the song is Able, and it was recorded the same year, I think it was 1974 or 75, the same year as they recorded Still Have Jesus. So both records, that time you call them 45s, the vinyl.
Yeah. Those who
Both,
don't know will probably get a chance to see what it looks like. I think when it
yeah,
comes up, they'll see what a
yes.
45
Because with
RPM
the
looks like.
DJs that time, they could scratch, So both songs were recorded the same year. Yes, Able and Still Have Jesus. And there's a big story behind Still Have Jesus, but we won't go into that right now, unless you really want me to.
Yeah,
But
but let's give a little listen to this part of this song, Abel, and let people see what a vinyl 45 RPM record looked like. Yes.
Lord, I can't live this life by myself. Lord, I need you by my side so that I might be a conqueror and I'll be able to go on. Lord, I'm able, able, able to go on. Lord, I'm able, able, able to go on. Every day I walk this life's road.
Yes, Emmanuel Joseph, Abel.
mhm.
And tell me a bit about that song,
Right.
Emmanuel.
So first of all, both songs on both records, were backed by the Gospel Comforters. I was a
Yeah.
resident vocalist with the Gospel Comforters during those days, the 70s and I think the early 80s. and they recorded both. It was actually recorded in the studio there next to Starcom. I don't remember the name of the engineer, a white guy, and it was recorded in that studio. And this song is really about, you're reaffirming the fact that, without Christ, you're not able to continue, you're not able to have hope, you're not able to go on when frustrations and turmoil face you, and you just have to rely on God. So he allows you to continue when there's no hope. And so
And
that
you
was
wrote this
really,
song?
I wrote all of my songs, both sides
You were,
of both records.
you were writing this back in the 70s, and you
Yes.
recognized the need for Christ at that time to allow you to be able to go on. And it
Yes.
seems that certainly he has enabled you, because the 70s, we are far away from, very far removed from the 70s. And
Yes.
you're still very much able.
Yes, definitely.
Really a
Um,
lot to give God thanks for, Emmanuel. Go ahead.
yes. There were several times that I feel to return and do more recordings, and I've prayed about it, and I actually believe that because how Still Have Jesus have impacted lives, and people who don't even follow gospel music were impacted by Still Have Jesus. And it was number one on, I think, Radio Paradise for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's big throughout the islands, and it went as far as Canada. So I feel that this is a gift that God has given to me to write songs that would impact people's lives. So definitely it's not too late, and I'll
Certainly.
be back. I'll be back recording. So you got the
So
scoop
let me
here.
just share with you, for when you say still have Jesus, what you're really talking about. You're talking about a
Right.
song which was recorded in latter years by Promise. And
Yes.
they still do it in some of their performances. I know that they do it in spoof, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, they
In a,
did it.
in a
They
kind
do
of
this.
spoof.
Yeah,
Yes,
actually,
yes. So that song that you all,
this song Still Have Jesus. I would say is the only locally composed song that was covered by the island's top acts. Joseph Niles
okay,
has this song on one of his albums. Promise has this
okay,
song on one of their recordings. And
yes.
the story behind this song was, I mean, I was brought up in the church. So, you know what I mean? So I'm a Christian, and I was brought up in church. And back in the day, this song came about as a result of a relationship I had with a young lady who I thought I was losing her. And there were signs that I might have been losing her. So I was inspired to write a song that would kind of give me comfort if it happened, right? And the first thought was to write a love song, but the Spirit told me, no, as a Christian, you need to write something that would impact people's lives forever, in terms of your Christian walk. So that is how this song came about. Still have Jesus. If you lose whatever, whomever, you
I
still
want you
have.
to let's share with us at least the first verse of that song. Um, yeah, I want to, so we know what we're really talking about in terms of
Right,
what you were saying, what it is that you wrote.
right. So the song actually, I broadened it. I moved it away from a narrow situation with me and that young lady, and looked at
Yes.
a lot of other areas that I can apply to at any time of the year. So the first verse says, if I lose the rain, if I lose the sun, if I lose the love, if I lose all that I may possess, right?
Mhm.
I still have Jesus. So I looked at all aspects of life that would impact people in general, right? So this song could apply to any time of the year, to anyone in any situation.
And we are talking about a song you wrote back in the 70s, right?
Yes.
Early 70s, and recorded back then. And to this day, in 2026, this song is still impacting the lives of people. That is an amazing thing, you know.
Yes.
God has inspired you to do something, write a song, and when you did this, you imagine that in 2026 this song would still be.
No, I did not imagine, but I just had the belief that it would do something, that it would do something special. But I did not realize it will have so much legs. And
So I want
so,
to encourage you. I
mhm,
want to encourage you to those that pen. I know you like writing, you're into writing for Barbados today, but God still has something left in you. And in terms of lyrics of songs, because there's a very dire need for good focused songwriting. And even
yes,
if you don't do the songs yourself, you might be able to share them with some of the young artists that they
mhm,
would be able to present that music to Barbados, and who knows, years from now it would still be going. Now,
yes,
I'm really happy to have you because you tell me a bit about the Gospel Comforters, and I want to remember and acknowledge Yvonne Griffith, the
yes,
wife of Chalmer Griffith, and there's an organization back in those days that you were also part of.
yes.
I know that people today are not aware that there was a Gospel Music Association of Barbados. Was that the name of it?
Yes, actually, it was called Greenwood Productions at first, and I was the founder president of that association. So it was myself and two Adventists, believe it or not, two Adventist gentlemen, and I think it was Trevor Griffith at the time who had a show on rediffusion called Gospel. I can't remember gospel. It was a gospel show, music, and we got together and we, because of the desire to push gospel music, because it wasn't respected in those days. It was just Joseph Niles, so people thought that that's it. It was just Joseph Niles and full stop. There were no other artists who were worth being exposed. So we thought we would put together this organization called Greenwood Productions. But then we recognized that this really don't relate. So then we changed the name to the Barbados Gospel Music Association. And I remained as president. And then we did a number of events, yes, in those early days. Yeah.
So you've had a good involvement, and Chalmer Griffith, of course, you got involved with him with the Gospel
Yes.
Comforters,
Really got
the late Chalmer Griffith. What I do remember about Chalmer is that he was like the keeper of
God.
records. Anytime
Yes.
I needed an artist, I need the name of an artist, I need a number, I could
Mm.
call Chalmer and be sure I'm going to get that contact. He had to contact every person who did gospel in Barbados.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yes.
he did it. An amazing
Yes.
thing. Also sold music at Baxter's Road. Did a
Yes.
lot over the years to promote gospel music. Now, moving away from that period, and you've got into journalism. You got involved in the Barbados Association of Journalists. You sit in those coming out of that. You started also to cover as part of your journalistic duties, or I don't know if you did it as you were commissioned to do it, or you did it out of the of it, but you wrote regularly on what was happening on the gospel music scene.
Right. So in 1976, I remember that clearly, again, because of my desire to see gospel music lifted and be promoted. I approached Gabby Scott, who was in charge of entertainment at the Advocate at the time, and I asked him about writing a column, a gospel music column, and that is where it started. And as a result of that column, there are a lot of artists now who don't think, several of them, many of them don't exist now, but we built that foundation for the artists of today. We promoted a lot of artists who people knew nothing about apart from those who went to their churches. And throughout the years, I was writing and promoting and being critical, but also giving suggestions as how the music can be improved and putting pressure on radio stations to play gospel music not only on Sundays, right?
Yes.
And as a result of that, a lot of the artists found their footing and came to the fore. And then there were lots of concerts, and then people would go to the concerts, and I would attend the concerts and review the concerts,
Review
and
the concerts.
yes, review the
That,
concerts.
I get a feeling as though we're going backward, Emmanuel. We were at a point where a concert was held on a Saturday night.
Mhm.
And you can pick up the newspaper sometime during that week and see a review of that concert on the weekend and
Yeah,
see a critical review of that concert.
yeah,
And the reports were not always favorable
No.
to people who presented the concert. It was very much a critical review. Some people didn't like you very much
Yeah.
for what you're doing.
Yes.
You've got a few
Yes.
enemies in doing it, but it really kept people on the toes to a certain
Yes.
extent.
Yes.
A critical review of a concert was something that we could have anticipated, and we knew it would happen. Not only would you see a report in the paper, but you'd get coverage on the radio also as we got into the 80s,
Mhm.
and that is something that is sort of doesn't happen anymore. Why do you think, Emmanuel, that does not? Is it you? You got tired?
Well, things happen when you get into a career like journalism. It pulls everything from you, out of you, and you find yourself being so focused on it because it's not an 8 to 4 job, right? And you find you have to focus a lot on it because there were times when my family was affected by the hours I worked. So
Yeah,
it is one of these professions that
very
you
unforgiving.
have to have that time,
Yeah.
and but it's difficult to get that time, right? But you have to make the sacrifice. And several times I thought about actually writing critical again, and or writing about God's music, promoting it in the media and so on again. But it is the time that you have to have because like
Emmanuel,
uh,
these are two things that we have touched this evening that you you feel the need to do again.
mhm.
Writing those songs and getting into doing critical reviews again. I'm going to be praying for you.
But even this evening coming on this show, I rushed my work. I pushed to get here. Yes, because as I said, it is the kind of profession where you can't put down your pen or say I will do that tomorrow. It's an everyday something that you have, and you have deadlines, and you have to produce it at today, right? So
That is a profession that does you either be disciplined or you not make it in that because you do have to meet the deadlines.
I
Now
tell you,
we are moving along. You would have had the chance to see a lot of changes come about in
mhm,
gospel music, and remember when Joseph Niles' music was played, the music of the Gospel Comforters. He was doing a lot of Caribbean music. Now we're into a period where people are doing all styles of music, people are doing. And then in more recent years, we've had the situation where we see artists doing things that and getting into arenas and spaces that would not necessarily easily happen. I think the person who did most of that in the early days, Joseph, would actually appear maybe anywhere that he was invited.
mhm,
Um, he was maybe the one person. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are not aware of it, but there were jukeboxes across Barbados in bars, and
yes,
one of the music that was there in that jukebox was Joseph Niles' music
mhm,
in the rum shop. We're talking
yeah.
about bars, but in the rum shops all across Barbados. How explain to how that worked, Emmanuel?
Well, the
What is it?
record was
What is
available,
a
and
jukebox and
because
how it worked?
it is because Joseph was so popular, right? As I said earlier, he was the voice and the face of gospel music. So he he did so much work in the early 60s and the 70s that he stood out head and shoulders above everybody because of the amount of work he did in the arena of gospel music. So when people thought of gospel music, they thought of Joseph Niles. So as I said earlier, very few other artists really factored in. So it was easy for them to get his music in the jukebox because he was so big. And in fact, he was the only artist, as far as I can recall, that got official invitations to appear at official government events,
Yeah.
including controversial events like the Queen of the Bees. I don't know how many people remember there was a show called the Queen of the Bees with homosexuals on display, and he was
At the
invited.
Globe.
Huh?
It used to be
Yeah,
held at the Globe, not so?
he
Yeah.
was invited to perform, but when the promotion, the advertisement went out, boy, the whole of Barbados to kick a fuss. And I think, I don't recall if he actually performed, but it was so much heavy criticism that I think that he backed out, right? If I remember correctly. But that was how big he was. Everybody wanted Joseph Knight because of his popularity. Yes?
Talk about taking the gospel into spaces that are unusual.
Yeah.
That brings us to a very interesting one, because we have some folk in the more recent times who decide, well, look, we're going to set up a Calypso tent.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I remember my time at Promise when we got an invitation to Cahoblapot, and the kind of backlash that you got. But we were a little bit more hard-nosed, I suppose, because we figured, well, these people need to hear the gospel. That's all we're doing. And we did go. That was just after Tamara Marshall had won the Me Gob Song Contest with Supernatural Voyage.
And there was
And,
controversy surrounding her too.
the band had backed her. Yes, because the band had backed her at the Me Gob Song Contest at the Queen's Park Stage, which she won. And she was playing with the band fairly regularly then. So when the invitation came to go to the stadium for this concert, the band agreed to go. But then she, through the persons at her assembly and so forth, discouraged her from going.
Yes.
Similar to the whole situation with Joseph, I suppose, going to that
Yes.
event at the Globe Cinema. But in more recent years, we've had then the establishment of a Calypso tent, and there are these people doing. How did you view that? And how did you view? Because that reaction to that was maybe not different to the reaction back in the day with Joseph, the reaction with Promise and Tabar being invited to Cahoblapot.
Mm-hmm. We are a conservative society, yes.
How did you view, and from your perspective, how do you
From my perspective,
see that establishment of that tent?
right? So
Yes,
we are a conservative society, but I thought it was a great idea to have Christian influence in the crop over and the tents, because here's the thing, right? If you want to dispel darkness, you have to bring light to darkness. You cannot dispel darkness.
really.
Yeah, you cannot dispel darkness by bringing darkness to darkness. So if we are the light, then we have to shine on the darkness. It is impossible, therefore, to shine on darkness if you don't take that light to the darkness. And as Christians, we are commanded to go and spread the gospel everywhere. Now, if you
Really?
want to, yeah, yes. So the whole hullabaloo about the experience tent, and I'm sure you might get to the Kadooment and so
Yes.
on, is it's because like it is something new. But you will realize that after a while, the hullabaloo and the fuss dies down, and people start to get accustomed. Not everybody, but it is not as intense. It's just like in the earlier days when reggae and so on, gospel music was involved in reggae, when the gospel seeds, they were heavily criticized for their reggae emphasis. And there were times in churches, I know I might be diverting, but I'm going to come back to the point. There are churches who would never allow you to bring drums or guitars in their church. And today, those same churches are out front in terms of steel pan and drums and guitars. So we go through these phases all the time, right? And there will come a point in time when you accept it. You know what I'm saying? But that is part.
But I think, Emmanuel, it's more than just accepting it, though. I think it's a need to get into a place of understanding, a place of enlightenment, of recognizing. Because one of the things that you hear as a criticism is that these things are going to draw people away from the Lord. You go, and I've never understood it, that you are a believer. You go into a space taking the gospel, and because you do that, you're going to get corrupted by that space, what's going on in that space. And I'm wondering what type of believer is this that's going to happen to?
Well, those are fears
You
that,
know, where do you stand?
Mhm. To be honest, those are fears that are real
Yeah.
because believe it or not, it depends on how weak, what your level of spirituality is. Yes.
Mm.
And depending on what it is that where you're going, right? So if you say A, you gotta say B, but it's a real fear. Okay. So, but the point is, you have as a Christian, if you want to evangelize, you have to prepare yourself and go where, as we will say, where angels fear to tread. So you have to go places where the sinners are, right? They're not coming to us these days, so we have to go to them, right? Whatever it takes. But we should be prepared for what we might experience, whatever confrontations or backlash or whatever we may face when we go into these spaces. But we should go. We have to go.
But does it have to do, Emmanuel, with the preparation of people, their preparation, how they are discipled, how they are taught an understanding of the
Yes.
responsibility that you have to communicate the gospel, the amount of time they actually spend in God's word, how they
Yeah.
actually prepare for ministry. Now,
Yes.
I know that people can get a glad or get a feeling that they just want to do something. That's not the person I'm
Mm,
talking about. I'm talking about a
mm,
born again believer
mm,
who is understands the commission. Go ye into all the world. Is the first question, who are you? You're the
mm.
salt of the earth, the light of the world. Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel.
Yes.
Teach men. So if you are trained, you're brought up, and that's what you're being prepared for, really. You're not being prepared to stay within the four walls of the church. God forbid. I believe that the preparation is to go into spaces, go wherever you go to share the gospel with people. And
But
so it must have to do then with the preparation.
preparation, personal preparation and corporate preparation, preparation from leadership. And I
Yeah.
suspect, I say this, I believe that there are some leaders who shortchange their congregations in terms of teachings and guidance. And therefore,
You didn't just say that.
yes, and therefore they take their cue from their leaders. Lots of people believe in their leaders big time, right? So when you shortchange your congregation, then it spills off into how their attitude, it spills off into their approach to evangelism and Christianity and everything else, because it's like a domino effect. And I strongly believe that our leaders need to step up to the plate, right? And teach their congregation what they need to know, right? So they won't be ignorant, as Paul would say. You shouldn't be ignorant to these things, right? So that is how I feel about that aspect.
Now, when we talk about the criticism that people have, but I know there's some persons who have had support. We were chatting with Samantha Clark recently, Sammy Jane, and
Mhm.
when she appeared, she had the support of her assembly.
Right.
I spoke with another person who'd been involved in the experience tent, who also got in the area of leadership with the local artists, being then being selected by them actually to assist in representing them,
Mhm.
um, and they have the support of their assemblies, the places where they worship. And I think it made a big difference to them as they entered that arena
Mhm.
and were able to see very good results. So we've been talking about the whole area of getting into ministry and getting into areas that are unconventional. And
Mhm.
we've also been looking at the results, the reaction of people. Um, I just want to remind folk you're listening to Gospelfest Conversations. I'm Adrian Agard, and my guest this evening is Emmanuel Joseph. And I've established that he is a former gospel artist. He's now an established journalist in Barbados, and we're really happy to have him share with us this evening, and we're happy that you're being able to join us. Emmanuel, so we heard the emergence of the experience tent, but the folk who were behind that went a step further, and also stepped into the era of masquerade with
Mhm.
the Walk Holy Band. So
Right.
move from one level of decadence into another
Controversy.
area,
Yes.
got into
You
more
have to be.
darkness.
Yes. So again, it's another, it's an innovation, right? The area of religion, and let me use a broad brush, religion is a very sensitive area. It's like politics. Yes. So anytime you do something out the norm, especially in a society like Barbados, you're going to get that reaction, right? But I think motive is a big deal, right? What is the motive for being involved in masquerade? And what do you want to achieve from it? Those are key things that have to be considered. And once you have a focus and a motive and it's right, I believe you will get the right results. Okay? So you don't have to be skimpy to masquerade. Yes? And therefore you can show this is an example. I mean, there's back in the day, the masqueraders were well clad, and they showed a story. They told a story. They told a story of history and heritage.
Mhm.
These days now I'm told that they prefer to be as skimpy as possible, but as a Christian you don't
You
have
say
to.
you're told you have not seen it. Then you haven't gone
Well,
to look.
I I want to be safe by saying that. But yes, I've seen them in the past. I've seen them, better clad than now. And what is the problem? I may ask the detractors, what is the problem of masquerading in Kadooman? What is the problem? So it is because I believe that masquerade is associated with decadence and simulation of sexual acts and skimpiness. So you shouldn't be in there. But you're not doing that. You're there for a particular purpose to show that you can do it differently, and it doesn't have to be the way that it is being traditionally or more popularly done. And that at the end of the day, your presence there is more than just being in a Kadooman masquerade. Because as you know, and as we know, that those guys, those people who were involved or still involved, have ministered to people who on Kadooman Day and were
Yeah,
successful, right? So you have to be there if you want to impact lives.
yes, you really can't do it from a distance. It's one of these things that you either get involved or you don't. And you, as a journalist, though, you have seen all of this taking place. I'm very interested in your perspective of the impact, both where the tent was concerned. How did you see it? I know that you didn't do a critique, you didn't write on it, but I'm just wondering. I want to pick your brain, find out what did you observe? What did you see? What are your thoughts about the impact of these two initiatives?
Right. So the experienced tent, I know that people were very skeptical. The man in the street, the average person, were and the church people, they were skeptical about why are Christians getting involved in Calypso tent, and that was the initial response, the skepticism, and some people would laugh, and some people would say, you know, they should be singing calypso and things of that nature. And but my perspective is, again, as I said, it's another way of ministering. It's another way of showing that you can do things in a wholesome way, right? While others are doing it in an unwholesome way.
I wanted
So
to hear from you. Yeah, we established that. I want to hear from you. What did you see as the impact of it?
the
Um,
impact,
oh,
right?
so it's done. So how did you see it impacting the what was going on in the realm of Calypso? How did you see it impact what was happening in the era of Masquerade?
Right. So
What do
let's
you
look at
see
the
as the impact?
look at first at the era of impact. After a while, those who sang calypso in the experience then, people got to recognize that at first, though they were skeptical, that these guys have something to offer, and they have started to respect them, right? There will always be those detractors, but they start to respect them. And the songs that they sang were impactful to those people they heard, even people around them who did the secular aspect, right? And therefore, the impact became later, right? And just like in the masquerade, the impact came later, because in the earliest stages, people in the church, people outside of the church would have been very skeptical, and they would wonder why are Christians involved in this. But as I said, as it grew, people became impacted and were inspired by the very songs that they sang, right? Because they were presenting songs now off the chain, songs that were not hitherto performed on the calypso stage. So they had a Christian twist to that.
I've also noticed some pretty interesting songs coming out from artists who, even to this day, might not profess to be Christian. I've noticed a shift and a change in some of the music that people put out. I've noticed some songs from RPB, for instance, in recent years, and some of the others too. Adrian Clark, other persons have written some songs that I don't think normally you would have heard being performed. Very, very positive material.
And I think that is part of the impact. That, as I said, artists started to respect them and started to recognize this is something that we can embrace, right? We don't have to be smutty. This is something that we can embrace, and hence the influence on some of the top artists actually going in the same direction that the Christian artists were going. So it's had a positive impact, but there'll always be the negative. But we need to be more focused on the positive outcomes.
Now, when you look at the current climate, and you were sitting in a position where you were able to see all the reports on the stuff that's happened, you get the coverage of events, the coverage of activity. So we're looking at what is going on in the Christian arena where Christian music is concerned. You've seen the emergence of a lot of artists. How do you see the current gospel music scene? And you remember back in the day, you remember the 80s, you remember the vibrancy of that time, you remember events at the Queen's Park Tea Shed, Nazarene Tabernacle, George Street Auditorium, Bethel Auditorium, the Cultural Center, Catholic Black Rock Cultural Center, and sometimes multiple events on a Saturday night. How do you see the scene now today as compared with those periods?
I believe, Adrian, that the movers and shakers back in that day, they either passed or they got too old or tired and retired. And it's just the one or two like you who remain. Because back in the day, there were so many stakeholders, so many movers and shakers that brought life, right, to the gospel music scene, as you described. Every weekend, or almost every single weekend, there was a concert. And there were also places like the Gospel Youth Center thing and down Cheapside Road, run by Griffith, Chalmers' brother. And so young people had some place to go, wholesome place to go every weekend. So there was activity there, right? And as the concerts were fast and furious, if not a big concert, church concert. So little, because the gospel conference, we went almost every weekend to a little small church in the country. And that was very impactful because the atmosphere was very intimate. So the people who move these things are no longer with us, or gotten a little old. And therefore now the younger folk have come along, and they're seeing and being influenced by more modern types of music. And I am afraid that some of our present gospel music is too commercial. Too
What do you
commercial for
mean?
any, I'll explain. Too commercial for anybody. You listen to the lyrics. The lyrics are is like you phrasing, you using some artists are even trying to copy Jamaican lingo, Jamaican phrasing and Jamaican style in an effort, I suspect, to be accepted. Commercial from the point of view, the lyrics are is like you just put them there and you mention God just to make it seem like it's a gospel song, or there's a by the way reference, in the lyrics, and the kind of content is not something that's inspiring or that will last, right, on your mind. Is like you just want something to keep the rhythm. You just want something to dance to, and therefore I think they've lost a focus from that point of view, right? And I think they need to be more careful and more focused on the content. What is it that I want to achieve from this song? I just want people to dance. There's a room for that. There's a place for that. But what is the focus of my ministry?
Emmanuel, it's a good thing that you're not doing these critiques in the newspaper every week anymore. I see some people will go home after these concerts and cry.
It's true.
So it's true.
It's true.
So we're seeing that with the what's going on with and certainly there must be some positive things that you're seeing
Of course.
emerging with the young people.
Of course, there are always positive things, but as I said, in a sphere as a Christian sphere, you can't afford to be negative. You can't afford to go off track because people are watching you, people are listening to you, and you are supposed to be, or we are supposed to be, the salt and the light, right? We are supposed to lead the way in 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 life in all aspects to show an example, right? So when we do something negative, then the heat will come down, right? But there are a lot of positive things happening in among our younger people in gospel music, and I know that our brother that sang in the calypso, what's his name? The Reverend Pastor Yard.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He was well respected because he actually placed, I think he placed one year in the pick of the crop. I mean, he placed. So is another area that you can show that because you're a gospel artist, that is not sport you're making, that you have something to offer.
Yes. Now, you looked at the impact in terms of the changes, what we've seen with gospel music, with the current crop of gospel artists.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at how our society has changed, though, the whole, we just had crop over finished, and we had the involvement of the various bands and so forth. And there was a fair amount to review that I saw on social media and stuff. How do you see us going in terms of where's the nation going where that is concerned?
Explain.
Where's the nation going where our crop over celebration, that Kadooment, where do you see us going with that?
Well, the evidence is there, based alone on the outfits. I fear that I don't know. I don't think it will happen because it's against the law. But I sometimes I wonder what these young women think when they put on these costumes. Well, when they're not really costumes, because all they're hiding is just the nipples and their pubic area. So if this is the direction we're going, I don't
But
know
you
how.
say, you mean this is the state we have arrived? This is the direction we're going. This is the place that
See,
we
that's
have
what I'm saying. We're
arrived.
already there. Yeah,
Yes,
we're
you're
already
right there.
there.
So we wonder what
So,
you have
so
to
the
wonder what's
direct.
next.
So if we continue in that direction, I'm afraid how we might end up. I don't know where we end up unless we are pulled back by the powers that be. But here's the thing. The thing is that I'm told that the participants, the masqueraders, they're clamoring for the skimpy outfits. They don't want no coverage, much covered. So if the demand is there, what the authorities do, right? The authorities have to make a hard decision. So that's the dilemma right now. So that's my fear. I also would like to see more of our heritage or history, more focus on that. So so I need to see more of that enshrined in our culture.
Do you think it is possible for the agency that's responsible to make guidelines that would help to shape and direct how people actually behave, how people equip themselves at these events?
Well, you can't legislate morality, but we can have guidelines as far as we can have guidelines, right? I mean, right now, there was a big fuss about using little children to walk up on adults. And I've not seen that in recent, at least in the last Kadooment. So I think the society itself also has a role to play in speaking out, right, about these things. So it's not only the authorities, but the society itself, the church itself, right, has a role to play in speaking out against these things and putting pressure to bear on the authorities, so the authorities then in turn can have the kind of guidelines without necessarily looking to legislate, morality, but guidelines as to how the festival, how the masquerade ought to go, because it's a masquerade and people are going to want to enjoy themselves.
Don't you find it interesting, Emmanuel, that leaders of assemblies will maybe be able to mount a pulpit on a morning and give a critical comment to a group of Christian people going to set up a Calypso tent or to be involved in a Kadooment activity? Do we get that same pronouncement or that approach where when we see things go to a level in the society, it could be anything. It don't only have to be we crop over. Are we in this day hearing from our leaders speaking to issues that are social issues, even from yourself as a journalist? Are you seeing any writing, anything coming from our scholarly leaders of the church addressing issues that are national issues? Because what goes on at crop over time is national. How people behave, the whole thing relating to the what's going on with the crime situation. Are we in this day, are we hearing from our leaders addressing issues?
Okay,
Do you
here's
get
what.
anything crossing your desk?
All right, here's what. I'm glad you asked that question, because you would notice, and I don't know how many people notice, but when something tragic breaks out, when a lot of people get shot, it seems to be the only time that certain pastors come out and join and say, let me have a week of prayer and all that there. Outside of that, when everything is cool, you ain't hearing anything, there's nothing controversial, then it seems to be a lull or quietness. Nobody is coming out and saying anything. But when these things occur, it's like a 7-day wonder. You come out, you see, you want a special day of prayer or a week of prayer, and all these pastors coming together and everything. And then, boom, it dies down. But we need more consistency from the pulpits. We need more consistency from all Christians, not only leaders. We need more consistency, right? Because there is a mission we have, and it's not a mission for a season. It's a mission for 24/7, 365 days of the year, whether the country is in turmoil or not, because there's always something out there, right, waiting to explode. We need to prevent, so to speak, rather than react to things. We are too reactionary in this place, right? We need to be less reactionary as church leaders, as Christians, and do what we need to do every single day. Keep the ball rolling, keep the heat on, keep the message going all the time, and don't wait till certain things happen. Then you see we bring together people to have a special day. To me, that's nonsense.
No, tell me, is there a restriction in terms, because I know that people do write letters to the editor. Are you still getting letters to the editor coming from these sources? Do you have ministers writing, communicating, seeking to get a message out? Are you seeing that within
Not
your
in terms of these issues, not in terms of these issues. They would try to get a press conference or bring together, have some event, but we're not seeing these letters coming from them, right? At least in droves or frequently. But there's really letters to the editor about these issues. They will come from other people, right? But I'm not seeing anything from the church per se. It's about.
Do you think that media in this day is amenable to Christian leaders, open to any communication? Because
Of course.
I know.
Yes. We are. We are amenable. We are open to facilitate all shades of opinions, all shades of once is in decent taste and is not defamatory. We are open, yes, to all shades of opinions. Wish we could get some more from the church. Yeah, there are times when church people would write the odd letter or the odd article, but it's not, as I said, it's not as consistent. Everything seems to have a season in terms of people speaking out, about these things in society.
I just want to give you the opportunity to speak. You mentioned what is happening with our local artists, and if you had the opportunity to speak to a young person who's talented, how would you encourage them to go in terms of the writing of music? What encouragement would you have for a young person who consider that maybe I could do this? I could maybe record music. What words of encouragement would you have for them?
Right. So first of all, I would suggest to them that you need to have a passion. You need to know what your motive or your focus. You have to have a mission, a vision for your music. If it is like you want to just do it by the way of a hobby, right? That's different. If you want to do this as part of your mission, or if you have you see this as your mission, or even if you can't make up your mind if you want it to be your mission, right? You need to have a passion to impact lives. If your music and your lyrics and your songs are not impacting lives, or when you're writing and your lyrics do not speak to people's issues, people's problems, or people who are hopeless, right? Then you need to step back and pray that God will give you that inspiration to write that can impact people's lives. So the first thing you need to have in your mind when you're singing, or you want to sing, or you want to write, is that the goal is to impact lives for change. And then you have to be consistent you have to keep at it no matter what. Frustrations will come, that is part of life. But you have to keep the goal in mind and strive for that goal, and you will reach your goal once you keep working at it. And also surround yourself with people who are positive, who will inspire you and urge you on. Don't surround yourself with negative people who would inflict toxicity into your system. And also people who are versed in writing, like the veterans and are writing, ask for some guidelines, ask for some tips, right? So that you will get the knowledge and you will be a better person for it, right? Because knowledge is power, right? I read somewhere that knowledge is power and information is liberating.
Emmanuel Joseph, I want to thank you so very much for your time, for taking the time to be with us. You are certainly someone who has stayed the course. It's been over 50 years that you've been doing what you're doing and still doing it. I see you're not yet retired. And so I want to wish you I want to wish you God's richest blessings. I want to thank you so very much for being our guest this evening on Gospelfest Conversations. Remain faithful, and may God continue to bless you. Thank you very much for joining us for Gospelfest Conversations. I'm Adrian Agard. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Do have a really wonderful evening.